Welcome to SUSECon 23. This session will be covering the kernel live patching day 2 operations with SUSE Manager. Hello, my name is Patrick Swartz. I'm a pre-sales engineer in North America, and I will be your presenter today. So what we're going to cover in this session, basically, we're going to review what kernel live patching is, where is it, what does it do, how does it help us. We're going to review the SUSE Manager content lifecycle filters, how to use them, when to use them, etc. Then we're going to go quickly into a couple of demos. We don't have a lot of slides here, but I do want to cover a lot in the demos. Okay. So basically, what is kernel live patching? Kernel live patching allows us to fix kernel vulnerabilities without ever taking the system offline. These are typically Sev 7 or greater vulnerabilities that have been discovered. And as we will learn in the process of today's session, that there oftentimes are severe kernel vulnerabilities that are found. And without kernel live patching, this would require us to update the kernel and reboot it and bring it up to speed. With kernel live patching, that's not an issue. We keep our original kernel. We can just patch the kernel with new libraries so that it keeps the system up. The underlying applications are no longer the wiser, and so it allows us to continue the system running without any downtime whatsoever. Okay. So how does this really work? Well, this is a really, really high level picture of how kernel live patching works. Before the call would come in, the old function would just return with the issue. After the patch, though, it goes through ftrace, through the kernel live patch filters, and then allows that new vulnerability to be resolved, and it goes back out. Again, without any issue whatsoever being under the application not knowing what's happening underneath. So in a typical workflow of kernel live patching, we start off with the kernel 0 with a particular kernel. Each kernel that SUSE provides is good for 1 year from the date of release, and we'll look at some websites that will give us some data about that. And we may have one or more live patches for that specific kernel in that year that kernel is valid or supported, rather. And so you can have as many live patches, and you can continue stacking these live patches up on one on that particular kernel for the life of that kernel. And then it gives you plenty of time, lots of runway then to schedule for the reboot that you will need to do to get to the next major kernel, which is what we're going to talk about today. And so in this example, we started off with kernel 0, did the live patch for kernel update 0. We did about 3 of those. But on the second one, they decided to go ahead and pick the new kernel update, and then they just migrated up to kernel update 3, and they scheduled the reboot to get there. Okay. So, and this is an example, like I was talking about. This is looking at SLE 15 Server Spec 4, the original GA kernel, the 22.1 with the tail end there. It was supported, and it's going to be supported until June 21st, which is the week here of SUSECon. And so far, there's been 7 updates that I was able to count. So that would have meant that there were 7 opportunities of vulnerabilities of Sev 7 or greater that would have required us to reboot the kernel without having kernel live patching. And these are severe, vulnerabilities that have been discovered. And this allows us to then continue the updates going without having to reboot that kernel. We can see then update 1 came out with 24.11.1. Update 2 went to the kernel 24.18.1. Update 3, etc. It went to 24.22.1. And so you can see we've had a number of different kernel versions for SLE 15 SB4. And each one is valid for a year. It's supported for a year, and in that year time frame, you'll see a number of updates for that specific kernel. And in our demo today, we're gonna look at using update 3. We're gonna take an original update 0 system. We're going to walk through, and in our demo, we're gonna talk about picking update 3, for example, and how to get there using the SUSE Manager supported content lifecycle filters. Okay. Here's a good place to, if you want to go find where all the updates are, these links here provide that. The screenshot you can see is of the support update page. We can, in this example, I show you, we can look for a live patch. In this example, I want the live patch 3, the update 3 that we talked about. And then there, you can see that there are, 6 updates listed here for update 3, okay? So the workflow, this is going to talk about, we're going to walk through a couple of screenshots and we're going to see these actually in the demo of how to do a kernel update. So this is basically the workflow. We're going to, the initial content lifecycle filter with no reboot filters so that we don't get any extra kernels, only the content lifecycle, or the, the kernel life patch is going to be allowed for that particular install. And then we're going to we're going to decide which kernel we're going to move to. In this example, we'll see we're going to pick a specific major new kernel that we want to get to, and we're going to look at our matrix, figure out which one we want. We will add that, filter that out so that we can get just that specific kernel and no other greater one. Then we'll, install that kernel, reboot the box, and then we'll go back to allowing new content or kernel life patch filters. Too many acronyms. And so we're going to see that here in the next several images. I added the screenshots here just so that they're on record. But this is kind of what it will look like with the content lifecycle filters for kernel life patching. So in this example here, I've got a couple of deny filters. And what's really nice about with SUSE Manager, we have templates that allow you to create these filters very easily. Okay, you can pick a specific system or a specific kernel to create these filters, and we'll look at those. All right. In this example here, we're filtering out my first one. I'm not allowing any updates after January 1st. And then the most important ones there are the no reboot, anything that has a reboot suggested or has reboot needed in the package name. But we're going to go ahead and allow, though, the live patches for that specific kernel, that initial GA kernel, that 22.1 kernel. We're going to allow all the live patches for it to get to our system. Okay. And once we have got that, and that's where we're at, now it's time for us to pick the next major kernel that we want to go to. Like I said, we started out with SLE Service Spec 4 Update 0 with that GA kernel, 22.1. But we decided, comparing to our matrix and what our applications allow in this hypothetical example, that we can move safely to the 24.21.2 kernel. Okay, and we can see that it's supported now up until September 16th of this year. All right, of 2023. In case you're hearing this in a future date. So we're going to pick this kernel here for our example today. Now I could have picked any one of these other kernels, but just for hypothetical lab experiment, we're going to pick the 24.21.2 kernel in this example in our demo today. Okay. So once we've done that, we're going to remove our original filters that took out that setup for our kernel live patch of the 22.1 kernel. We're then going to go ahead and deny anything greater than that 24.21.2 kernel. So that, because we've seen that there are newer kernels besides that one available, but we don't want any of those. We want this specific kernel and to be allowed in our environments. So we've picked that kernel. We've created a rule that says deny anything greater than that specific kernel. And once we've done that and applied that to our systems, we can see now in this example here, there's my kernel that's available now to be installed. This is what's currently installed, 22.1, that original GA kernel. But now I've got the 24.21 kernel allowed to install. Okay, so then this system, I would apply that update. It would reboot the box. Okay, once I've rebooted, now I need to go back to and reset up the filters so that I can allow the updates, the live patches updates for that 24.21.2 kernel. So I'm going to take out the greater than, because I'm going to deny all kernels that require a reboot. All right. But I'm going to then and filter out anything that requires reboot back again, but it's specifically for 24.21.2 on the live patches. And now my system is now set up again for that next iteration of pat and live kernel live patches for 24.21.2. Okay. So now let's jump right into the demo. Okay. Um, and here we go. Let's go ahead and maximize our screen here. Here we can see that I've got a group of systems, and we're going to, I've got some that we're going to play with here. These three right here, KLP boxes right through here, we're going to play with today. All right. So one of the first things I want to do is come down here to Content Lifecycle, and let's look at our project that we created for this. All right. I called this one KLP SUSE. And I can see that in this, let's go to the very bottom, my stage 3. Okay, I've reset some of these, and this is totally acceptable to do in with Content Lifecycle, is to add and remove filters as you see fit. But you can see I've set up this one so that it allows the 22.1 kernel or live patches for 22.1, but I'm denying anything that has a reboot suggested or reboot needed. Those are the ones I'm going to add to this filter, and that's what I had set up for this. This is my source. These are my filters, and this channel was created, my stage 3 channel. Okay. So if I go back and look at my systems here in a minute, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now I had worked this way through Content Lifecycle, my version 5 before that, up above that. You can see this is where I was allowing that greater, denied kernels greater than right here, okay, in that filter. And so I took out my other ones. I added this deny greater than filter. And so this channel is going to be able to have that newest kernel that I picked, that 24.21.2. All right. And then at the very, very top, this is where I started. Now I've taken out the deny after. I'm actually going to allow for my large updates as well, just FYI. But I'm taking out this deny greater than because I'm putting back in the reboot needed and the reboot suggested denies. All right. So let's see how this all works in action. If I look at, we're going to use Salt here to do some remote commands for us, so we can quickly see and compare between systems. MV 15K. So I'm just going to filter out just to look at those 3 machines. Okay. And just for grins, let's do a uname-a, all right, on all 3 of those systems instantly. Okay, I can see my response here. You can see my first demo 1 here. It's actually on a newer kernel than the other 2, all right, because this is like any good cooking show. I've got these already prepped and ready to go, all right. So let's also look at then the command we want to run here, klp-v patches across these 3 machines. All right, and you can see that we start at the top here. My oldest system, D3, is my oldest system. You can see that it's still on the 24 on the default kernel right here, and this is the initial live patch. I've not added any live patches to this box yet. Now D2, that's the system we've prepped and ready. We've already applied all the live patches available to it for the original default kernel. Okay, and we're all the way up to live patch number 9. But we're still on that 22 default kernel right here. All right. My most my D1 system is my test system. My first one is going to get all the newest updates here. You can see that now it's on the newer kernel. It's on the 24.21 kernel. Okay, and it's got live patches available against it. All right. Another command that we want to run against these, so we can see some more data, is zipper lifecycle. We're going to then just so it makes the screen a little bit simpler. We're going to just grep for kernel. Okay, so we just want to see the kernel data because the lifecycle provides a lot of data about all the packages, but we just want to see the lifecycle for kernel. And this will take a few seconds because, again, it's Zipper's doing a lifecycle on all the packages, but we're just going to filter out just for the kernels. All right. So again, if we start for our least updated system, we can see that we've got that what's installed is the first one, but there's an available update to version 9 of this kernel live patch for the default kernel, okay, the 22 kernel. Our second layer system here, you can see that we've got live patch for it. It's all installed. There's available updates for some of the firmware, but the live patch for the kernel itself is there. And of course, our test system here, you can see that there's a live patch available already for it, okay, because it's already on the newest kernel, the kernel we chose to go to, and we've already got a live patch available for that new kernel. All right. So let's look at some system. Let's look at these systems here. Let's go down here to D3, and we go to software. We go to patches, and if we just filter again for kernel, you can see I've got all of the security updates for the live patch, but you see none of the types here actually show that they're a reboot required, because none of these are actually required a reboot. And all I would need to do is simply click those and apply those patches, and this system would now be fully patched with all of the kernel live patches. Again, I'm stacking all these live patches up that have been released since my cutoff date for that specific kernel. Okay, this specific kernel right here, 22 dash default, right? Okay, and so I can very quickly patch my box, see all the kernels that I can patch, or all the kernel updates that I can patch, and this system would not require a reboot. All right. And if we go back and look at our other system here, D2, for example, now here you'll see this one. If I filter for the kernel, you'll see that I have a lot of kernels that require a reboot. All these, and when I install these kernels, this kernel right here, any of these, it's going to pull in Zipper will apply the most, and it would actually be this one based on this date, the most up-to-date kernel available that I've allowed in my system. Okay, and if I look at this this advisory here, I can actually see that there's my kernel default 24.21.2. I don't have any newer kernels because I could have added a lot newer kernels, but my content lifecycle filters filtered out all the newer kernels besides the 24.21.2. And so I can see that this one, I can easily, if I just select it here and apply patches, it would, of course, require a reboot. That's what my symbol here shows me, that this system would require a reboot if I patch these. And once I patch those, it would come back up here in the status and it would say reboot required, and just simply come over and schedule a reboot. All right. Now, if I look at the last system, of course, or the first system in this case that has the newest patches, you can see if I look here, if I look again for the kernel, I can see that I've got lots of live patches available, um, but none that require a reboot. And this, of course, then would be for my 24.22.1 kernel. All right. So let's go back and talk about where we can find some of this data, which packages, which kernels, and all that, because I know it can be confusing. Well, we have a couple of pages, and I talked about those in the slide deck that you can go back and refer to. You can see in this example, SLE 15 Service Pack 4, Update 0, the original GA kernel was at 24.21. We chose to go to the 24.21.2 kernel. You can see when they expire. Again, this one expires September 16th. But there were a lot of other kernels that I could have chosen for SLE 15 Service Pack 4. Another place to look is this page here. Like, this is the example I gave in the deck. You can see I've searched for title, anything that said title of live patch with keywords live patch 3, because I just wanted, in this case, to look at the live patches for update 3. Okay, you can see the different live patches here. that were available. Another place we can look at for data is on this page, and you can see the release date from that, and then of course the kernel that it was when it was released. And there's our 24.21.2 that we were looking for earlier. Okay, right there. All right, and then of course it's a live audience. I'd ask for questions, but it's not. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. If you have any questions, of course, there's lots of resources to come back out and find out more data. Um, but this is how we can make it easy to use. One more thing I want to show real quick is this ability to create. We have the ability to create when you choose to go to a new um, kernel. It's very simple to come up here to create filter. I can use a template, and here we go. We have templates set for live patch based on a specific system, or live patch based on a SUSE product. Okay, so if I want to pick a SUSE product, all I need to do is tell it which product I want to select, and then it tells me all the kernels that are available for that product, and this is how I came down here and chose the 2421 kernel. That's the one I chose, and that's how I would create all of the required filters that I would need. Let's go pick one here. Let's go back up. Let's pick something newer. For example, here we don't want the latest per se, but let's go to 60.1. All right. So remember 2460. So we're gonna. Oh, I gotta give it a name here. Um, KLP 24. 60, for example, got one. Okay, and you'll see that this quickly created LP. If I can type 2460, so it quickly created all three of these filters for me, so that if I needed to, I could go back through and use these three filters. There's my live patches filters, my two no reboots. Okay, and that's how quickly it is to create the filters that we need based on those templates. All right, to allow us to set up our content lifecycle. Now in the project, I could simply come over here and change my filters and use my KLP 60, these guys instead. Add those, take out the others, simply take these out here, and add in my KLP 60 that I just created once I find it again. Right there, and right there. Okay, and you can quickly see I'm able to take the three out that talked about the 2421 and simply added 2460. Okay, and then click build, and away we go. All right, again, thank you very much. I hope this was somewhat educational and informative. I appreciate any feedback you can provide me, and I look forward to more SUSE content in the future. Have a good night.